Hello. Can you guys hear me all right? So I came here last time, and as soon as I left the last time, I was like, man, what story am I going to do next time? And actually, it's funny, it's almost easier to remember stories sometimes that happened to you that you did based on what other people think was really funny that you did. So this was one that my family tells me a lot, but I'll give you my perspective on it. And so this is a middle school misadventure with one of my friends, David. And so in sixth grade, David and they brought all the sixth grade class into the auditorium, and we watched this movie called October Sky. It's the one where it's like kids in the 50s, they see Sputnik, and they want to build a rocket. And so we're in the auditorium, the movie ends, I look over at my buddy David, and I'm like, we could do that. We could build a rocket like they did in there. And so what do we do is, like, first thing we do, we go back after school, where we go to his basement and his dad's garage, and we start just like looking around for all manner of like random materials that we could, attempt to make a rocket out of. So we find some copper piping, some washers, some soldering equipment, and a bunch of other things. And so we're putting this together. We find some wood that we can try and make a nose cone, and then we're like, dang, we need to get some propellant. We need to get some fuel. And so I was like, all right, David, you take care of the shape of the rocket because I don't know how to cut metal and you do. Really, he was a cool sixth grader. So I tasked myself with essentially figuring out how to, with various household chemicals and things you can find in the hardware store, how to make rocket fuel. I bet the family computer was put on some sort of watch list after that. But you'd be amazed how much information you can find on the internet about this stuff. So it's probably a good thing that kids don't have access to a large amount of funds, because that was definitely a limiting factor. So I hit up the hardware store. I get a bunch of things. Apparently cold packs are very useful for making various incendiary things. So you get cold packs too. And I go into my basement. So I'm in a big paint bucket. I'm just cooking up rocket fuel, it's just like all of these things are measured in grams. I'm trying to use teaspoons and cups. I don't know what the conversion to grams and teaspoons is. It's very inexact. But eventually, I do crystallize out this kind of brownish powder, it's like I'm gonna test this. We're gonna start slow though. So I get some newspapers. I soak it in I roll it up. I soak it in the thing, and I make like a little, like one of those solid fuel rocket things. I bring it over to David, and I say, okay, here's prototype one. We go out to the woods. We set it off. It mostly just makes smoke, and I'm like, all right, that didn't go well. Back to the drawing board. I go back to my basement to make more things. David, in the meantime, has fashioned a very nice copper pipe rocket, and I think this is just the coolest thing. Neither of our parents know about any of this. We're just kind of going. So, second attempt at making the fuel. This time, I think I get it a little better, and it's like, it didn't make that much of a it didn't make that much of a flare when I was out in the woods, so I'm just going to test a little bit. So I get a little bit, and I light it, and it just puts out this flash and this plume of smoke, and I'm like, I messed up, because now the whole basement is smoky, and I'm like, what do I do? So I have about an hour before my parents get back, because they work a little later. Gotta love that unsupervised time when you're in middle school. And so I quickly try and open up all the doors and air everything out. But literally the first thing my mom says when she steps in the door is, "What is that smell?" And I'm like, "I'm not sure. Shall we investigate? Perhaps it's the oven?" And she's like, "No." And she just follows her nose down to the basement, and she's like, and she picks up the bucket, and she's like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "Rocket fuel?" And so we have to have this awkward conversation, me and David, with our parents about what we were trying to do. And I just remember my father looking at the rocket and being like, and just laughing and being like, "Were you guys making a pipe bomb?" So, yeah, the dads thought it was very funny. The moms less so. But yeah, that was just a fun thing that I have never lived down in my family. They always like to bring that up, and so yeah, it's a fun memory. And I think he's not working on rockets, but David, I think, is working in aerospace now. So he got there eventually. He got there eventually. But yeah, thank you.